I'm Nick Cannon, and I'm going undercover on the internet. This is actually me. Instagram. Did you say that you were against tattoos in your earlier years? Something about your body as a temple, so you didn't want to ink it up. Am I wrong? I definitely said that. Look at the hypocrite that I am. At that time, I did, because growing up, I was super religious and grew up in a household where your body is considered your temple, which I still believe that. Just now my temple got some graffiti on it, like some artwork on the outside. But I still believe my body is a temple. What does the headwear represent to you? I respect it. The headwear, people call it many different things, a Death Star, a turban, a head wrap. Ultimately, it's a sign of sovereignty, self-governance throughout the ages, throughout the years, whether it's the Sikh understanding, whether it's more science. An individual who wears a turban is always considered as a safe haven, or someone that can offer guidance and assistance when there weren't law enforcement or police organizations in certain communities. And you still see that today. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions and stereotypes that have been perpetuated since then, but the people who wear them and stick true to the form, it's all about discipline and sovereignty. I definitely consider myself to be sovereign and self-governed and anti-authoritarian, but I don't think I give good advice. Click. IMDb. Formed the rap duo The Bomb Squad with his best friend. They opened for the likes of Will Smith, LFO, 98 Degrees, and Montel Jordan. Early on, when I was a teenager, I definitely formed a rap group called The Bomb Squad with my best friend. And the only person that, as a group, we opened up for that's on this list is Montel Jordan, which was, this is how we do it, guys. So that was pretty big for me, coming from San Diego and being a local rapper. But then the biggest act that we opened up for happened to be Outkast, which actually I felt like helped propel me to be able to get the opportunity to go to Hollywood and perform quite a bit as not only a rapper, but also as a stand-up comedian, which then allowed me to open up for all of these other people on the list. Will Smith, which I didn't really open, I performed for him, and then obviously he became my mentor, so we have done shows and stuff like that together, but I never really opened up for Will, but definitely LFO and 98 Degrees, because by the time those acts came out, I was on Nickelodeon, hosting, performing, making music. So all of these things are true. They just happen in different time frames in my life. I stick, I flick. Someone on my set like to take a task, slamming fools like basket. It's just, you're trying to put words together really fast. It's like, it wasn't good. Next, more Instagram. What are your do's and don'ts when it comes to foods that trigger your lupus? I also have lupus, and I never knew which foods would trigger. That's interesting. I actually had this actual conversation with my doctor this morning. They diagnosed me with lupus nephritis. It was my immune system attacking my organs. Scientifically, it has yet to be proven, but I actually do believe the things that you put in your body and you create a very electric diet that you can prevent different flare-ups. But ultimately, I truly believe water is like the secret elixir to all problems on the planet. This is from Twitter. How does Nick Cannon continue to find his way into literally every single celebrity athletic game ever played? I don't know if it's every single one, but I've kind of been around for a long time. So, obviously back in the day we would do like rock and jock stuff on MTV, or even when we do stuff on Nickelodeon. And then, I've always been a friend and fan of the NBA. And I'm not even that good at basketball. I don't suck though. I'm very athletic. I'm not a competitive type of guy. I think a lot of people, when I play in those games, they get upset with me because I don't take it seriously. Like, I'll be on the sideline eating nachos or trying to crack jokes because Wikipedia. Oh, yeah. Cannon received his first break doing stand-up comedy on his father's local cable access program. Pretty true. I don't know if that's where I received my first break. I would say public access. or cable access as they call it sometimes, is the place where I kind of learn the game, or it's kind of like a training ground for me for what my real career would end up becoming. If anyone has ever worked in cable access, you know you have to do it all. And I learned that stuff at like 11 years old because my dad did have his own public access program. As a reward, he would give me like the opportunity to have free time for myself with the cameras and do whatever I wanted. So I would just like do comedy skits, and this is obviously way before there was a YouTube or any of that stuff. So these things would actually air on television, and I would be rapping, and I'd go to school the next day and be like, yo, I saw you on TV dressed up as an old lady rapping. It was just me kind of exploring, doing silly stuff as like a preteen. That world then turned into stand-up comedy, and you know, as my dad would go around preaching and speaking in different churches and events, I would kind of open up for the preacher man. And here we are today. Click. This looks like Twitter. Nick Cannon, what was your workout routine for Drumline? Preseason looks grueling, my dude. Drumline was interesting because that was obviously my first starring role. So I had the opportunity to just dive all the way in as a leading man, but then someone who wanted to show that I took this entire process seriously. I dedicated myself as a true snare drummer. So we went out there a few months before we started filming and did like 6 to 8 hours every day of just drumming for weeks. And I would sleep with the drumsticks in my hand just to try to get used to it. Because I've always messed around with instruments, just coming up in the church and stuff. So I had musical ability and could mess around on a standard set, but I had never done chorus style marching. And really the trick was to learn the cadences that I needed to learn for the movie, and only those cadences, and master those, so I wouldn't have to necessarily rely on my double or any of that stuff. And I feel like it worked. The majority of the drumming in the film is me. More Twitter. How come Nick Cannon doesn't wear socks? It's a style thing. I mean, when you're wearing loafers, I don't think I'm the first to do it. I mean, it may look a little confusing if I don't have on socks, or if my pants are tapered a little too high, or my suits might be more fitted than the average person, but it's just fashion choices, trying to do something that's a little bit forward than what the average person would do. But I don't think my feet were stinky. I mean, I put like baby powder in the shoes. Next. In 2015, Cannon was named Chief Creative Officer for the now defunct Radio Shack. According to the company, this role involved creating Radio Shack exclusive products, curating the in-store experience. Radio Shack chose him in hopes of catering to a younger crowd. The reason that actually happened because I was always a huge fan, and still am, of Radio Shack. That's the first place I ever got my first DJ mixer, my first microphone, my first keyboard. On a neighborhood where I didn't necessarily have a male figure to show me how to work all of that stuff, I could always go to Radio Shack and they would help me hook up my equipment. And this was like at young age, like 9, 10 years old. I remember telling that story to the board at Radio Shack at the time, and I've been doing a lot of business with them with my headphones and other consumer electronic products, and they were like, yo, you probably could help us out. And they were in a state where, they were making some company shifts and different choices as a brand, and they definitely needed to tap into the younger market. So we got together, we did some really cool things, but apparently they're now defunct. So I don't know how successful my Chief Creative Officer duties were, but we had a lot of fun. Instagram. More pictures of me punching bricks. Nick, who is that a picture of on your arm with a hat on? What is in her hand? Ooh, that is actually, and it's not her. That's a comic book character by the name of Dr. Shalakin. And it's like a mastermind when it comes to like music and programming. And I believe that's a heart, a live flesh, blood pumping heart in Dr. Shalakin's hand. Wikipedia. Cannon is now the chairman of Teen Nick for Nickelodeon and the development and creative consultant of the network since 2009. Yeah, that time went by so fast, too. I doesn't even feel like 10 years being the chairman of Teen Nick. And, we developed some really cool things, from the Halo Awards to Teen Nick Top 10 to Nick Music. Still doing some really fun stuff with Nickelodeon as well in the music space. And, yeah, I've been a part of Nickelodeon my entire career. So I remember being 17 years old and being the youngest television staff writer in television history, and saying, like, I want to go further. Like, one day I'm going to be running this place. And then, 10 years from then, I was, like, the youngest television chairman in television history. So to be able to now to look back in almost, definitely over 20 years of being in business with Nickelodeon and being in entertainment, the things that I've accomplished, sometimes I forget about it. Yeah, every kid born like before 1995 thinks I started Nickelodeon. How did Nick Cannon influence society? Is this a real question? Man, I'm honored. But ultimately, I would say from Wildin' Out to feel like we kind of put our mark on like freestyle comedy and improv comedy in the world of hip hop. And then also, I always say from my fashion choices to what I stand for my community, I definitely try to enforce and embrace being different. And being yourself and not trying to fit in by any means, thinking outside the box, not allowing opinions of others to sway you. So I'm honored. I never thought that I influenced society, so I'm rolling with it. Nick Cannon wrote a children's book. What is it called? Wild and Nap Time? That's a good title. She's funny. We should cast her as a writer. I write a bunch of children's books, actually. One of the first ones was a Christmas book about my twins, which was cool because, their mom is like the queen of Christmas. So I got to like implement a little festive creativity on that. But then probably the one that I'm most excited about and then kind of has ventured off into many different books and titles is a book of poetry that I wrote called Neon Aliens Ate My Homework. And it's in a very Shel Silverstein type of format where it's over 100 poems, just still in like the zany, silly, quirky world, but also the inspirational space. And it's just a bunch of great poems. Currently, Cannon hosts his own show, Cannon's Class. It's funny, I never even considered Cannon's Class a show. It's just actually something I do at Howard University. And like I said, I question everything. Even things that I feel like I already know, I still question it. And to sit with experts in different fields and just ask them questions, and sometimes questions that we all want to know or we don't ever get the opportunity to ask, and then we document it in a podcast form. But then we also building curriculum to go along with it to create other discussions online. I feel like it's just an informative platform, and I think that is refreshing and informative to the audience that receives it. College isn't for everyone, but I believe education is for everyone. We all seek after different things, but I think ultimately, whatever that information is, however we consume it, to build one's mind is definitely one of the reasons we're here. Submit it. Thank you all for watching. That was actually me.